Okay, thank you everyone who's joining us. We got some people coming in. We'll give it a couple more minutes. It's still a few minutes before 5:30. Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, but I'm going to give it another minute or two just to see if any latecomers trickle in. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Just giving it another minute or so before we jump in and get started. Okay, I think I'm going to be respectful of folks' time and go ahead and jump in. Thank you all for joining us this evening and taking some of your time to help us at Parks and Rec talk about a new potential park or expanding the Guadalupe Gardens and finally building out what we had planned a number of years ago. I'm Nicole Burnham. I'm the Deputy Director of Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services overseeing the capital program. So tonight I'm going to introduce you to the other folks who are here that are going to help present and who are helping manage the meeting. And walk through some of the past discussion we had in December at our meeting then, or just throw out some reminders of what we talked about in that meeting. We're going to talk through the prototype park concept that we have and then talk about next steps and do some question and answer. Friendly reminder, this meeting's being recorded. So you'll be able to look at it and view it later on the project's website. So as introduction to the team, as I mentioned, I'm Nicole Burnham, Deputy Director, Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services for the City of San Jose. And I'm joined by Willem Wee, who's an Associate Landscape Designer on my team. I also have Jason Sue with Guadalupe River Park Conservancy, the Executive Director. He's here with us tonight as well. So he's our project partner and you'll hear from him. I also want to acknowledge that we have two folks behind the scenes who are critical to our operation tonight. We have Cassie Hunter and Lisa Beltran, who are both with us, helping run the Zoom and helping things run smoothly. We also want to acknowledge that the work we're doing here, we are doing in coordination with our partners at Mineta San Jose International Airport, SJC, as we call them, our co-workers in the city. Also the Department of Housing and the Department of Public Works. And also a lot of you may hear about the term Beautify SJ, which is actually part of Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services, but they are also very much a key partner for us in this endeavor. So just a friendly reminder, we had our first meeting in December of 2021 on this topic. You can view that meeting at the website listed here. So there's a full recording of it and the question and answers that were addressed. We also, as part of that, had done a survey, which received over 500 responses. We had an incredible response to the survey about that supported the first community meeting. At that meeting, we talked about the Guadalupe River Park Master Plan and the Guadalupe Gardens Master Plan, the environmental clearances we have associated with that master plan. We also talked about the constraints and limitations of this site as they relate to environmental considerations and operational considerations related to the airport, as this project location is within the flight path of Mineta Airport. So things that we want to just frame out for you tonight as we think about this conversation. So what we're talking about here is what we're calling phase one of a prototype park. And we're looking for quick build, short-term projects that we can implement that don't require a lot of capital costs, that aren't very invasive, that also fit within the existing environmental clearance that we have to build out the gardens. And why are we doing that? Because our goal right now, our short-term immediate goal, is to activate this space for park use and get users in this space. In the longer term, we can talk about bigger improvements, broader improvements. We heard a lot from roller skating. We heard a lot from pickleball. We can think about those things, but they're going to take a longer lead time for us to implement because they're going to require different environmental clearances and different coordination with the FAA and the airport. So what you'll hear about tonight is very focused on these quick build, short-term projects. Another note is that our ongoing investigation is happening relating to potential soil contamination at the site. We don't know that there is any, but we're doing our due diligence and having soil samples collected. We should have those results in late May or early June, and that could influence what we do here even in the short term. There's also currently no funding to construct the park amenities. So we're going to need to work through that process of identifying funding and working for both design as well as construction. And we also need to still work through long-term maintenance funding for the park amenities that we end up building and proposing here. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Willa, and she'll talk you through what we've landed on for Prototype Park and then a little bit deeper dive on what some of that might mean.
Thank you, Nicole. Good evening, everyone. I am Willa, Associate Landscape Designer with the Parks and Recs and Neighborhood Services. Okay, so let's go right into the prototype park layout. So on the screen, we can see that this is the phase one prototype park. And to give you a little bit of an orientation on the map, north is on the left. So that's where San Jose International Airport is located. East is on top where Highway 87 is shown. And to the west, that's Coleman Avenue. Columbus Park and the Heritage Rose Garden are on the right side of the image. So there are several elements that the phase one prototype park has called out. There are the disc golf course, a dog park, community gardens, and meadow areas. And as Nicole mentioned earlier, these amenities are meant to be quick build, low intensity type of activities and are consistent with the Guadalupe Gardens Master Plan's description of park use. So we want to talk about the different elements of the prototype park. So first we have a disc golf course. This 18-hole disc golf course goes for about 15 acres and is proposed to be in the middle of the prototype park. So that's where there's wide open space away from the main streets. We have a successful implementation of a disc golf course in Kelly Park, and a similar model of operation will likely be considered here at the prototype park for the activation of the site. So on the second element of the prototype park is the 5.5 acre dog park adjacent to Columbus Park. So whether it is to allow the dogs a place to run off leash or for pet owners to be active with their dogs or to socialize with others, the dog park creates a place where neighbors can come and relax. And with a park size this large, besides having separated areas for large and small dogs, there are also many potential uses of programs that this dog park could bring in. Dog training classes could be one of them. The next features of the prototype park would be the wildflower meadows and community gardens that wrap around the prototype park. So these meadow areas are intended to be flexible for future partners or potentially for urban agriculture. And we are working with environmental services on doing the environmental due diligence. So there will be a walking path that goes through the native wildflower meadows, which will give opportunities for the community out there to engage with the property. And the walking path would also connect back to the Guadalupe River Trail and to create a destination reason for being there. And since the last community outreach, we have received a lot of feedbacks on what other park amenities also bring interest to our community members. So in our phase 2 development, the potential improvements may include areas for roller skating, volleyball, pickleball, and art walk, restrooms, and bike pump tracks. These and other options will be considered for our phase 2 improvements. And with that, I will turn it over to Jason, who is the executive director for the Guadalupe River Park Conservancy, to talk a little bit about engagement opportunities and stewardship efforts at the Guadalupe Gardens.
Thank you, Willa. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Jason Su. I'm the executive director of the Guadalupe River Park Conservancy. We are partnering with the city on the long-term programming, stewardship, and development of this site, as we have for the last 25 years around the Guadalupe River Park overall. This part of the park, as well as the park overall, will really be led by the involvement of the community. And so, as Nicole said, there are a lot of constraints that we have to activate the space right away, as well as to really set the groundwork for long-term development and for long-term kind of build out of our river park. So if you are interested in getting involved, whether at this project or others, there's ways to volunteer and to support with cleanups, helping with fundraising for the prototype park, becoming a member of the Conservancy and staying connected, as well as helping plan events or programs, both for the prototype park as well as supporting the ones that the Conservancy is leading. There are definitely other ways to get involved beyond this, but the success of this part of the park, as well as the overall vision for the Guadalupe River Park, really is going to be a joint effort. So really hope you all do get involved, and look forward to hearing from you soon.
So in terms of next steps, there will be additional opportunity for input. This item will go to City Council. It's slated right now for May 3rd, 2022. Those of you who have been following closely may be confused by that date, because for a while it was going to be April 12th. Last week we were notified that it was pushed back. This topic is embedded within a broader topic about encampment management. So if you don't see Prototype Park or Guadalupe Gardens in the agenda, it's look for encampment management. But right now we're slated for May 3rd. And I called that tentative only because until the agenda is published, it could shift, but that's the date we're targeting. We have a survey out and active. There's a link to it, and there you're going to see a QR code in a moment. It was opened up last week, and it's going to close next Sunday. So, and it's more about getting feedback and on this specific design and the concepts that we're putting forward here. There's opportunities for involvement, like Jason said, through Guadalupe River Park Conservancy, who's very active in this area, not just through these ambassador programs and volunteer programs, but working with our maintenance teams and supplementing services they provide through contracts with Groundworks and other service providers. Stay updated via email at the email address by emailing the email address there. And then there's an entire website dedicated to this project that you can visit at any time. And so with that, we're going to open up. So there is a QR code here that you can scan to, if you want to take the survey, which we all hope that you do. And then, but we want to hear about, tonight, what do you like about the park? What do you not like? What do you think is missing that we're not thinking about that we should? So we thought we'd start a conversation kind of focused around those questions. And I think given the number of people that are here, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing, but we'll probably time the comments just to make sure we're able to stay on track and stay on time with what we're doing. And while Cassie is getting that set up, maybe I can read. There's a couple of things that have come in the Q&A. So maybe I'll start with one of those, Cassie. While you're getting yourself set up. So the first question was 15 acres for disc golf. Is this really what the community wants? Have you committed to this, or will the community have a say in this 15 acres? And I will answer that one live and just say that we haven't fully committed to that. I think we've heard interest from the community, but that's part of why we're here, is to understand what the community might need and want. I think if we don't go with disc golf, I'd welcome input on what else might be suitable for that use. And I'll just say also that the reason we like disc golf is because we know they can help steward the space. We have demonstrated success with disc golf in other areas of the city, like Willa mentioned Kelly Park. And another question that came in was, could City Council decouple prototype park from the encampment management agenda item? I don't think right now that's possible. I think in the future that could happen, and it probably needs to, but at this point it's so interlinked. And the reason it's interlinked is because those of you, again, who have been following along may know that there's been a lot of interest in this area generated by the encampments and encampment management. And so the reason that this has become a priority park project for us is because of, without activating the space, we don't believe that encampment management will be successful. The next question was, can you describe what the Kelly Park success was? Yes, so the Kelly Park success was very much around disc golf. There is a disc golf course. For those of you who know that piece, there is a disc golf course behind History San Jose in kind of a lower floodplain area of Kelly Park. It was very hidden from view. Silicon Valley Disc Golf Association came to the city some number of years ago, probably 8 years ago now, and asked if they could activate the space for disc golf. We entered into agreement with them, did a prototype. They built out the space. It's a low cost implementation. They funded it and built it. And they have been really stewarding the area successfully ever since. And because let me back up, prior to the construction of the disc golf course, because the site was along Coyote Creek and really hidden from view from the rest of Kelly Park, there were a series of social issues there, not unlike what we're seeing at Guadalupe Gardens. So the city had interest in activating the space. Silicon Valley Disc Golf was looking for a course and a location, and the two interests aligned. And since then, they have been stewarding that space. They do the bulk of the maintenance, and they have succeeded in holding, there's enough activity there that the social issues that were occurring there have not reoccurred. So that's, and I'll just end it there, but that's the success from on disc golf that I was referring to.
Okay, and we have one raised hand from Alyssa. Alyssa, go ahead and unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this a public comment only on the disc golf subject?
No. Anything that you want to talk about relating to the park in terms of prototype park, like any of the concepts we put forward.
Okay, yeah, well, I just wanted to kind of advocate a little bit for like a public like roller space, because I know we've been really lacking that, and probably the closest area that has like an outdoor public space would be like San Francisco and Oakland. And I feel like San Jose is really lacking in some aspects. And so, yeah, I just really want to advocate for that roller space. And I saw that you guys were interested in pump tracks as well. And if you do decide to, consider that, maybe consider a paved one instead of a dirt one to include rollerbladers as well. And yeah, I don't really have much on that. Just want to advocate for our fellow roller community out here. We're out here, so yeah. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next raised hand goes to Dave. Go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you very much for your efforts here. I approve of much of what I've seen and the advocacy for the roller skating, down the road and such. My comment would be, with regard to the river corridor and the the natural habitat of the river, that it might be better to pair the river with the native wildflower garden and more passive activities. So if you could just kind of, I'm not suggesting that you change the activities that you want to have out at the park, but maybe shift things around a little bit so that you have the garden and more of the passive areas. I'm a little concerned about the dog park being right next to the river as well. That perhaps you could shift the wildflower garden between the dog park and the river, and just keep in mind that it would be better to focus the louder, noisier, greater lighting and those kind of things away from the river. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Those are great comments.
And I don't see any more raised hands or questions in the Q&A. Actually, I go back. There are two new. The first one is the Rose Garden near the park part of the Conservancy? I love it. It's more of a comment. And the second question is from Helen Chapman. Is the development of the prototype park plans contingent on the removal of the encampment?
Jason, you want to talk about the Rose Garden for a second, and then I can talk encampment. Might as well put a plug in.
Yeah, we have our Heritage Rose Garden. It is wonderful. It is actually approaching 25 years old. So we have a very long-standing rose garden. We're lucky enough to actually have two rose gardens in our city, both actually on the same street. And so you could really make a day out of it looking at two very unique park assets in our city. So we have a large collection of heritage roses. We have volunteer events, I think twice a month, and reach out to info@grpg.org if you want to get involved in those.
Thanks, Jason. And then I can try to tackle the one about is development of prototype park contingent on the removal of the encampment. Yes, I think it is. And I think the city has every intention of addressing the homelessness issue that persists in this area. The homeless management is happening in 3 phases, and the first 2 have already been implemented and actually have been successful at keeping people out of the space that's been cleared. So I think there could be opportunity, I think, to build out portions of prototype park in the areas that have been cleared. We would just have to shift the assets and kind of shift what we build and where we build. But our goal is to have abatement and encampment management completely done, and then build park assets through the whole space.
Okay, so the next is a raised hand from Justin. Justin, please unmute.
Hello, this is Justin. Thanks for allowing my comment. So this is in regards to Disc Golf's partnership. Do we have any reports or demonstrations of the successful stewardship that's been going on at Kelly Park that we're able to see? I think we had talked, or you had mentioned that the reason that disc golf is at the forefront of this is, one, because of previous partnership, two, because they provided funding for Kelly Park, and three, that they have mediated some of the social issues. So the questions on there is, are they going to be funding this disc golf as well? And what are the social issues that are not continuing that we're talking about at Kelly Park? I have another question after that, but I want to give you space. That was kind of a lot. But I have a follow-up question if you want to address any of that.
Sure. I think those are great questions about the metrics around the success at Kelly Park, and I can ask our park operations team about those and get feedback from them that I would need to do. The social issues that were happening there are very similar to what we're seeing at Guadalupe, although not as concentrated. There was litter, debris, homelessness, and a community that had settled there and was occupying the space. And I feel like there was a lot more in there, Justin, so
That's okay.
then ask again with what I missed.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great case study to see that what you're talking about, the disc golf, how they approached, how they solved the issue, and how they're now moving to more permanent spaces. It's really great of them for doing that. Are they funding this part of their disc golf?
And I think
Or-
that remains to be seen. I think we have to figure out as a city what the best approach is and how we move that forward, whether we put funding in, whether we ask them to. I think we also have to investigate if there are other disc golf proponents that are out there that might, do we need to go to, an RFP to find the right provider for this space, or could it just be an existing partner? And I don't have the answers to that yet.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as many other people are, I'm advocating for roller space. Although I do acknowledge that to put in disc golf is a lot cheaper than to put in roller space. So I understand that portion. Right now, disc golf seems to be taking up a lot of the space, the majority of the space, and I wonder if we move forward with that layout, is that going to change? Is there potential where where they only need 7 acres? I think it's like 15 acres or something. I don't know the number, but if we say that this is 15 acres for disc golf, does that change into phase 2 or phase 3 if we have demands for other spaces needed? Yeah, that's my question.
That is our expectation, that we either would shift disc golf around to keep 18 holes and fit in other uses, or we tighten the course up, or so that's our expectation.
I'm sorry, the expectation is that the allotment now will continue, or there's possibility that it can be 15 or 10 moving forward?
That I think that in our world, in our thinking, over time, and when we start into phase 2, we would either shrink the disc golf course or move holes, right, to fit in the other uses that we want to include in phase 2.
Okay.
Nicole, let me kind of
Sure.
jump in a little bit. The proposals that you see in Prototype Park are within the current constraints, the current master plan, the current timeline, things like that. I think what's a very key role is to keep pushing for the phase 2 portion of it. That will also involve some sort of back-end planning, a lot of kind of environmental impact work. But once that is done, and we do know that there's a lot of interest for roller skate, a lot of interest for pickleball, things like that, we could kind of look at the whole thing together. And so the layout that you see is kind of meant, and Nicole, do correct me if I'm wrong, for kind of the most current time frame, but it does still keep the whole space open as long as there's kind of continual interest from the community around this. And so it's everything that everyone has kind of said here in the past community meeting, all the letters, like people take it to heart. I think people are actually very enthused that this space in the middle of our city could have a lot of these things that are not available in any other part of the city. And then we're also just working with the fact that we have an existing plan that is now over 20 years old and a very urgent timeline. And so it's not to, what you see here really isn't to kind of discredit anything. It actually is, this is what we need to do right now, and the window is still open.
Thanks for answering that.
Okay, so we have a question from Melissa Hibbard. What is the plan for water, bathrooms in support of the prototype?
The short-term plan would be that we likely would bring water. There's water existing in Spring Street and in Asbury Street, so we would bring potable water for water fountains and the like. In the short term, bathrooms will likely be porta potties. In the long term, we are working on reconstruction of Columbus Park, and there will be bathrooms there, as well as space there allocated for porta potties. I think we're going to, at this point, we don't plan to build another concrete or, built permanent restroom asset. That could change in the future, depending on need.
Okay, next question is from Nick Frey. Is there an interest in formalizing, rerouting the Riverside social trails?
The Riverside Trail, there's the main trail, that's the Guadalupe River Trail, which is the paved 12-foot wide trail. Our intent is to preserve that. And then the rest of the trails that kind of weave in and out, at this point, our expectation is we would keep them and not change them. They are part of the kind of overall plan of Guadalupe River Park. So that's our current plan with those.
Let me just kind of chime in real quick. I actually love the term social trails. In terms of what's there, I don't think there's any rerouting, but there's more so extending the trail from the river kind of towards Coleman and throughout, seen through the walking paths that are in the prototype park. So we will see a net kind of gain in spaces for people to walk around. We could rename them as social trails. I like that term. But it wouldn't have any impact on the current circulation of the Guadalupe River Trail.
Okay, our next question is, would it help to active the cleared portions phase 1 and 2 now to keep homeless from re-entering the area as phase 3 tries to clear them out?
Excellent question. And I think we're considering that. But it's not clear if we're going to move forward with that. I think the most logical thing to build now in the short term might be the dog park. And I also think we have questions about how much use it will get given the current condition of the site if phase 3 isn't cleared. So and I think there's a lot of, there's behind the scenes here, there's a lot of moving parts and discussion that are still happening. And we definitely see merit to that, to trying to activate sooner rather than later. More to come.
Next question. With the redevelopment of Columbus Park, which is adjacent to Guadalupe Gardens, could you describe some of the planned activation which doesn't have the same restrictions as these 40 acres?
Sure. Columbus Park is an interesting asset in the system, in the park system. It predated the airport. And so when there was residential neighborhood through all of the Guadalupe Gardens area, Columbus Park existed. And so it falls into a different category of management with FAA. So we're actually are able to have higher intensity uses there. So our current plan, which is still in development, but the current plan is to complete reconstruction of that park, including replacing the 2 ball fields that are there with multi-sport synthetic turf fields. So there would be 2 soccer fields that also could be available for baseball, softball use. If you want to see an example of that, you can look at Mize Park in Council District 1. And then also futsal, basketball, horseshoes, all would be there with a new playground and a new restroom building. And the site will be gated and accessible, kind of specialized, right? It'll be fenced, like kind of like if any of you have seen the Arcadia ball fields that we built in East San Jose near the East Ridge Mall. So that's the, and with that improvement at Columbus Park, we are looking at changing the roadway configurations through there. We're looking at eliminating Spring Street through Columbus Park and connecting the 2 parts of the park. So a lot of improvements considered for there, with an expected late 2023 construction start.
Just kind of add to Columbus Park, there is an upcoming community meeting around that project. I believe it's May 12, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Since some of the work is still kind of being finalized, we're waiting for that information to kind of get packaged. But definitely do kind of stay connected about the May 12th community meeting then.
Thank you. So the next question is, in 15 years, will this place be here for our grandkids, or will it become a concrete jungle and so it goes? Level of commitment. Thank you.
I mean, I think from a park system perspective, our expectation is that this will be public space available for recreation and access to nature. Parks and Rec doesn't have plans for development here in any way. So I hope that answers the question.
Next question. Can we include reconstruction plans of Columbus Park in reports? It seems to be very near and relevant.
Yes, great piece of feedback. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks. I like the overall plan. Perhaps a few acres less for disc golf. The tee pads could be removed, so an 18-hole build out would be okay. But eventually it will be good to have a range of activities, especially those families that serves health, art, wellness programming, maybe a cool picnic outdoor education space. And the last question is, what is the timeline for Columbus Park as well as Prototype Park?
So I mentioned earlier the timeline for Columbus Park. We are planning for a late 2023 construction start. That's our current expectation. The Prototype Park, we hope to start construction this fall on at least some assets like the dog park and disc golf. So that's our hope, but we don't have firm schedules yet on that.
Okay, so I don't have any more questions and there are no more raised hands.
Any last thoughts before we? Okay, well, with that, I will thank you all. Oh, we got one more. Dave Pochel.
All right, Dave, go ahead and unmute.
Okay, if you're looking for a last thought, I was kind of wondering with the disc golf, can you plan out where it's appropriate for doing things like planting trees and, you know, other landscaping that might have a long-term, you know, benefit? And of course, I'm always interested in, you know, getting more of our native oaks grown and stuff, but perhaps there could be, you know, an effort to consider, you know, what kind of landscaping would be appropriate for the long term.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we can consider as we move into design, sort of how the space gets planted. One of the challenges we do have here is because of the flight path, there are restrictions, heavy restrictions on what we can plant, how tall it can be, the types of plantings, things that attract birds are frowned upon. So that's going to have to get considered as we move forward as well. So all of that's going to have to get rolled together. But I agree with your thought, Dave, that I think we do need to be thinking about the habitat, because disc golf isn't incompatible with habitat improvement. And so if we can find a way to accomplish both, we should be looking for that.
And just to add, the consideration of trees, landscaping, things like that also do make the experience of disc golf more fun. So that would be, we're hoping as the design moves forward that it's incorporated both as a habitat element as well as a recreational element for disc golf.
Oh, and that prompted another question.
Sorry, I'm having issues with the allow to talk. All right, William. You can unmute.
Sorry about that. My screen is different than I'm used to. Anyway, I'm wondering with the limitations of the FFA airspace stuff, you were saying it kind of limits what you could plant. So that kind of makes it's not going to be like a super truly natural space. And there's a big interest in the roller skating, like the roller skating and skateboard kind of thing. So I wonder if there's some way as you're planning this, if there's some place somewhere that somehow combines the skate park and kind of the natural garden aspect, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be truly, natural because it's limited to sort of an artificial space anyway because of the airport, so that you could have kind of, since the skating is so popular, if you could do some kind of garden and skateboard kind of thing that's compatible with the airspace. And is there a skate park that actually does that? The skate parks I've ever seen are kind of not that pretty, you know what I mean? But that would kind of be sort of a garden type thing that would bring people to the river and things like that. The more, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, I think it made a lot of sense. I think it's an interesting design challenge. So I think it's good for the team to think about and bring back to the think tank and see what that might look like.
And one more raised hand from Justin. You can unmute.
Thank you again for taking my comment. So one thing that I learned during the during conversation was the actual requirements of what can be built. And someone had said that there's high density and low density. Can we get a little bit more, just so that the roller skating community can envision on ourselves, because of the airport going by, we do have some, I think it's called soot or something. There is pollution coming down from the airport or from the airplanes. And then there are buildings that are in that FAA area. I think it's storage. So just so we can start, envisioning in ourselves, like, what is low density? Can there be roofs built? Can there be, things that, for shelter or to keep the pollution out of the way? And I know this is phase 2, so sorry to drop it on you, but down the road, if we can get a little bit more details of what high density and low density means. Thank you.
Yes, I think we can, we definitely can do that. I know that for sure, one of the requirements is that any use generate less than 100 users per acre of land. So that tends to rule out things like, it rolls out like multiple pickleball courts. It ruled out soccer fields, because at one point there was a discussion about soccer fields in this space. And again, Columbus Park lives in a little bit of a different regulatory environment. But so the 100 people per acre is a threshold that we think about and are using for planning. But we can definitely, as we move forward, get more detail.
Okay, question. Sorry, late for this planning discussion. Prototype 1 is temporary. What is timeline for prototype 2?
That's an excellent question. I think our hope would be to continue to start to planning phase 2 as soon as we can finish with the prototype and get some uses in there and get the space activated. I think we'd like to be able to move forward. That's going to be a multi-year planning process. So I don't think we'd be looking at implementation or being able to build. If we can find the funding to build anything, I would think it's going to be more like 2025 or 2026 before we're thinking about building something there. Jason, would you see that differently or?
No, I agree. I think there's still a need for additional pressure and for continual community engagement so that it stays a priority for your elected officials and so forth. But the way Nicole started, there's no funding for construction currently and for long-term maintenance. And so we still want to do all of this. I think having the feedback here actually gives us, both the Conservancy and the city, more of an argument to seek additional funding. And so in many ways, that persistence, we're inviting it because we're going to be collectively on a long trip together.
Okay, no more questions and no more raised hands.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for taking some time out of your evening. I want to thank Jason and Willa both for helping presentation and Q&A, and Cassie and Lisa also for the background support. And thank you all from the community for coming out, for expressing interest, for expressing support. We definitely appreciate the feedback, and please take the survey and share it within your networks. Give us feedback. And thanks, Jason, for the reminder about the May 12th Columbus Park meeting. So look for that. I think Jason will probably post it on the GRP social media. We'll be posting it on the PRNS social media as well. And with that, I'll say good night and thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Everyone.